A year ago this month, the last American troops left Afghanistan, ending the nearly 20-year war. Tens of thousands of Afghans left with them, including many who worked side by side with U.S. forces. About 75,000 of them are now living in America in limbo, facing long wait times to obtain permanent resident status, and uncertain if they'll get to stay here long term. Our Spectrum News Washington correspondent Reuben Jones brings us one family story.
Scrolling through the memories, Bahroz Mohmand is taken back to a time when life was an endless cycle of chaos.
We were born in war and raised in war, and then did all our educations, everything in war.
Mohmand was 17 when he became an interpreter for U.S. and Afghan troops in Afghanistan. He earned an honorary Purple Heart and 2 White House visits for his contributions.
I became a translator to help my country rebuild.
He left for the U.S. 10 years ago and eventually received citizenship. When the last U.S. troops pulled out of Afghanistan a year ago, members of his family, with fears the Taliban would hunt them down, evacuated. Tahira Askari is Mohmand's 17-year-old niece. With Mohmand translating, she told us how she was able to get on a plane and escape.
It was a chaos. All you could hear was people shouting, people yelling.
Now living in North Carolina near Mohmand, she is safe, but her life is anything but stable.
We're scared. We don't know what our future is going to be. Do we get, accepted here to be a permanent resident, or we're going to be sent back?
Askari and about 75,000 other Afghans who escaped to the U.S. are in legal limbo. They were allowed in under a process known as humanitarian parole, but their only pathway to permanent residency, asylum, is significantly backed up, with waits taking years. Their temporary legal status makes things like going to college and getting a job difficult. And once their parole expires next year, there's no assurance they wouldn't be sent out of the country. Rebecca Niblock is Askari's immigration attorney at the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy.
Many of my clients are dealing with a lot of mental health issues, anxiety, depression, because they don't know if they're going to be sent back to Afghanistan.
Congress recognizes the delays as a problem. This month, lawmakers introduced the bipartisan Afghan Adjustment Act, which would allow Afghans with temporary status to undergo additional vetting to bypass the asylum process and apply for permanent legal residency.
The time is long overdue. This is a problem that's been growing ever since before that tragic evacuation.
The legislation, co-sponsored by Democrat Seth Moulton of Massachusetts, does have bipartisan support. But Moulton says he's hit a roadblock with some Republican lawmakers, putting a timeline for passage in limbo. Askari is enjoying her new life in the U.S. She wants to be a journalist, telling the stories of Afghan women who no longer have the rights she once did. But her own future remains up in the air as she attempts to settle into her new home.
If I don't have the proper paperwork to live here, how he's gonna reach his goal.
Yeah, sounds like they were promised things that they haven't received yet. Reuben, thanks. The Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy says there are more than 1,000 Afghans with temporary legal status here in North Carolina.